I think it's about time we tackled the issue of hard drug use within our communities. So, slightly embarrassing for me, in a way, but I'm an ex-addict, so I'm probably the perfect person to talk about this thing with you. And I'm going to start with fags and alcohol. So let's get started. Well, it was a different time when I was young. I started smoking when I was like 15, 16, and it was because I'd met a girl who'd become my girlfriend, and she smoked, and she was 16. And it was like, it wasn't direct peer pressure, that's the thing, because I was aware of peer pressure, and I was cool, I didn't go for peer pressure. But when it's inside your armour, when it's your girlfriend who's on this side of your defence, and she's encouraging you to smoke, and you're a 16-year-old kid, you're probably going to go ahead and do it. Now, unfortunately, this poor lass ended her life about 8 years ago, 7-8 years ago, God rest her soul, so she can't be here to help me make this video. But this is the beginning of anyone's drug use, really. Alcohol and cigarettes is where it gets started. And the reason is because it's okay. It's legal, if you're old enough. And everyone knows they're going to be old enough at some point, provided they don't die. So in their head, it's fine. Even though they're too young, they don't care about that. It's not illegal for them. They're not going to get put in prison for it. And the rewards of getting drunk and smoking, as I found out as a 16-year-old lad, are far greater than the punishments for doing it, which are like negligible. So, yeah, smoking and alcohol needs to be the first thing that you attack. Principally because it's the most easily available and freely usable thing, because it's legal, but secondly because it's socially encouraged. So people get into the habit of getting home from work, having a beer. I'm stressed, I'll have a beer. It's the weekend, I'll go out and I'll have a beer. And what happens is you don't get chemically addicted to it straight away, but you build up a habit. Like I'm in the habit of reading books when I go to bed. If I don't read before bed, probably won't sleep. It's just a habit I've built up and I rely on it now. The same as with the smoking, I rely on this. In fact, I'm going to smoke it while I make this video. So as you can see, it straight away is chucking out loads of smoke everywhere. So people don't realise smoke is destructive, not just to you, but everything in the room. So even though I always go on about how valuable my collection is and how I love it, because I'm smoking in the room, I have to have 2 fans on, one at either corner, constantly blowing the air around, otherwise all my books will go yellow and dusty and the value will drop. So it's actually worth saying to people who are young, who have just started, imagine what this is doing to the inside of your body if it's turning everything out here, yellow and brown, and dried up. It's removing the moisture from your body, and once 100% of that moisture's gone, you are dust. So that's probably a good way to start. Also, the thing you've got to remember, and remember from your own childhood, it's really exciting and fun. You're basically exploring the unknown. You're going out into space to see what you can find when you drink and when you smoke. So people only see the positives and the long-term negatives aren't quite clear. And that means it's our responsibility as adults who have experienced this, parents or just friends, it doesn't matter which, older, adult, experienced people, it is our responsibility and our job as moral, decent human beings to teach these kids where they're going wrong. Like Leroy Boscher here, who I've mentioned before on the far right, the murdering rapist who was drunk and on drugs and made some mistakes. Because some mistakes are just so bad they cannot ever be forgiven on Earth by humans, such as murder, which is what happened to this poor gentleman here, Richard Hardy. I used to live quite near to, and the guy that I was sharing a flat with, having been sheltered after being homeless, I got put with Leroy Boscher, and he ended up getting drunk against my advice and efforts, and he went out with his friends and murdered Richard Hardy. Now, when he went to court, his defence was that he was young and stupid and drunk and misled, and he got bullied into it. But the fact of the matter is, when he's up in front of God, none of those excuses are going to wash. Leroy Boscher, you murdered a guy in cold blood who was innocent, and that means you fucked up. And we've got to stop people doing this. Now, that's an absolutely tragic story. Not a lot of people are going to have seen or experienced something like that, which I did. But it stands to reason that if people don't know these experiences and share them and talk about them, even though it's embarrassing for me to admit that I was homeless and an ex-addict, or an addict at the time, and I was living with this guy and involved with these people and this life. That was what it led me to when I started smoking at 16, drinking, then I realised weed was nicer than drinking, so I moved on to that, and then through weed I met people that did speed and pills, went clubbing, started doing coke, and then you get all the drugs. That's what some people don't realise about the drug lifestyle. It has like a hierarchy, if you like, a qualification level. So when you're at the top, you've done everything and you're considered to be wise. You know, like a shaman. You've seen the entities. You've broken through the magical realm or some crap. You know, you supposedly know more than other people. But what I'm trying to communicate to you is that knowledge that you gain, that wisdom that you gain from smashing the hell out of drugs and ruining your body, it's completely worthless outside of those drug experiences and those closed groups of people. For instance, when you go to work, 9 out of 10 jobs you do, that's going to be a negative that you did that, and it's going to affect your character and your ability to turn up a lot of the time as well. Whereas if you avoid all that stuff, it's probably for the best. Now, I'm a hypocrite when I say that, because I obviously didn't ignore anything. I smashed the hell out of all the drugs that I could get when I was young, and I was lost. I had no meaning to my life. That's why I did it. I was looking for something extra that my life wasn't supplying me with. Now I know what that is. The meaning, the true meaning of life. Why we are here, why we're alive. What gets us out of bed in the morning and drives us to make videos like this, which are going to be criticised, put effort into being criticised. It doesn't make sense. But it's because I want my pain of those experiences. My life is littered with people who should be alive who are now dead because of drugs and alcohol. And I just want people to realise, yep, it's a bit of fun when you're young, but don't go too far with it. Don't chase it. So that concludes the section on cigarettes and alcohol. Everyone's obviously going to try it, yes. A lot of people are going to continue to do it, like me. I'm addicted to smoking. I've tried to quit several times. I always restart again. I always wish... It's my only regret in life, really, that I started smoking. I wish I'd never bloody touched it. So that's probably the thing that kids will ignore. But we need to put that in their head. It's our responsibility. So that ends the section on drugs and alcohol. And we can move on to weed. Cannabis is actually far more difficult to distract and discourage people from than cigarettes and alcohol. And that's principally because there's a lot of people saying it has a lot of benefits. So let's have a look. Now, if you try and discourage a child or a teenager from cannabis, they're going to show you something like this video. They're going to say, these guys discovered cannabis medicine thousands of years ago. It was really good and they relied on it. They didn't even smoke it or get stoned or high. They just used it as oil and in food. But it was eventually prohibited for financial reasons, and that's the reason it's okay to smoke it, because it's medical and blah blah blah. But what they don't realise is smoking it is not medical. Smoking is harmful. So far be it from me to say otherwise. Yes, okay, cannabis is a great medical product when it isn't smoked. But therein lies the problem. It's not the cannabis that you're trying to put them off. They can like cannabis if it's legal, and they can avoid it if it's not legal. But the thing you're trying to put them off is the smoking. Because the smoking, unbeknown to them, and this is the bit will work, this is the thing that will actually stop young people from smoking if you tell them. Now, I'm going to have to use a few rude words here to get my point across, but trust me, it's going to be worth it in the end. Now, the way to convince a boy, child, teenager that smoking is bad, if he's just started, that's the perfect time to get in there before they're chemically addicted. You just tell them the effects of long-term smoking. As you're smoking, you feel more relaxed because your blood pressure is going up and it's making you more tired and you get a head rush. So it kind of simulates the feeling that you get after you've had sex or something like that, where you kind of start out for a few seconds, and it's nice because you don't understand it yet. It's new to you. It's exploration. But what they don't realise is, along with that, the reason you're getting the head spinning and that nice feeling is your brain cells are dehydrating like a sponge down to a little dusty thing and then dying. So that's the first thing you're doing. Each time you get one of those head rushes, you're killing brain cells. It's similar to when you've got a hangover. So some of them will recover and some of them won't. Memories that you had are blasted will be gone forever. They'll never ever come back. It's almost like setting fire to a painting. You can have someone else repaint it, but it's not going to be the same as the original one. You may prefer the original, you may miss the original. So when it comes to your brain cells, memories, skills, things that you are aware of, you don't want to be not aware of those in future because it'll just cause you problems. So rule number 1, if you're going to smoke, be aware. You're killing your brain cells and you will lose memories and you will wish that you had those memories later. 2, this is where the rude bit starts, it makes your balls and your dick smaller. Yes, it does. The dehydration effect isn't the only reason either. when you smoke and you drink and you dehydrated, it lowers your general health and your resistance to like stressful conditions and illnesses and everything else. And the first areas in your body that respond to this are your genitals and your face, your elbows, your knees and your fingers, your extremities if you like. So that's fact number 2 that they're not aware of, is what happens to smokers over the long term is they get scabby, horrible nails, really, really yellowed and flaky nails that aren't hydrated at all, and horrible yellowy cuticles. You get really dried up skin, you're more prone to acne and spots, you get really bad breath, really bad teeth. The longer you smoke, they go grey. I've had my teeth cleaned like 4 times where they scrape all the stuff off from cleaning it, try and make them white again. I used to have perfect teeth. But through years and years and years of abusing the smoking, especially weed, it's actually got to the stage where I can't have perfect teeth anymore. The best I can hope for is like averagey nice teeth. So if you're a young'un and you know you're in the prime of your health, you look amazing, you feel amazing, and nothing's going to stop you. You're young and powerful, and smoking's nothing to you. And it's like, okay then, when you go out and you're smoking, the type of people that you attract and that want to spend time with you are going to be people who have similar habits to you. So if you go out thinking it's cool to smoke, it's going to make you look cool maybe, might get you laid like it did with me. But the fact is, you're now sectioning yourself off to those people who smoke and do drugs. That's going to be your life. You're literally turning your boat round and sailing towards addiction and all the people that are involved in addiction when you start smoking. Fact. So that's the main reason you shouldn't do it. You kill your brain cells, your balls shrink and your dick shrinks and you're less good in bed, your cardio suffers, your health and your lungs suffer. So during the actual shagging, you're not as good. You run out of steam, you get a semi on and it just goes, and it causes all kinds of problems which as a young person will affect your confidence going forward. So it directly affects your development, your sexual and your social development in such a huge way. And why are you doing it? Oh yeah, I can look cool for a couple of minutes and it's an easy way to get my first lay out the way. It's like, no. Like I said, you've turned the whole course of your life round just to get a quick lay or to look cool for 5 minutes. When what you could do is figure out the actual good way to look cool, figure out the actual good way to meet women and get laid without having to rely on peer pressure and drugs, which is what that is. Now, with any luck, the young people in your life will stop when they get to cannabis and mushrooms and the low-level stuff. But if they don't, the next tier, the next stop on the hierarchy is the Class A drugs, cocaine, pills and speed. Now, as you can imagine, the people who are going to sell you the cannabis and the people that are going to go into the shop underage and get you the alcohol, the people that live on the edge, they're going to be the people who know how to get the harder drugs. Maybe they've got an older brother or sister who does it, or a friend, or, you know, they'll have some social link that will sort them out with Class A drugs. So what we're talking about with Class A drugs, cocaine is the main one, where you sniff it up, you know, it's like a white powder, or if you get really nice, expensive one, it's like a rock and you smash it. That can be turned into, what's it called, freebase or something like that, where you do some chemical thing to it and it just makes it 10 times more addictive and more powerful. So you've got that, you've got pills, which you eat. You can also granulize it and eat the granules, but it's not very tasty, but the effect of it is lovely. Being on ecstasy and being on coke, while you're actually on it, experiencing the high, is lovely. There's no one that can deny that, and the reason is, the effect of that chemical is to flood your whole brain with dopamine, serotonin, you know, happy chemicals. So there's nothing you can do about it. Your brain is like switched on to 100% happy while you're on the drugs. You're like, yay, love it. Same with pills and speed. But the problem is the dose curve. It goes up like this, and you're on the high, and then it goes, and it just turns off immediately. And as soon as it turns off, you're in withdrawal, and you need to go and get some more and redose. Now, the problem is with cocaine, and the reason it's so addictive is you can have a line and then 10 minutes later go, oh, I'm going to have another line. And then as you build your resistance to it, say you don't coke for like 3 or 4 weeks or 2 months or something every weekend, by the end of that, you can smash huge lines. You go through a whole, you know, 70 quid or 60 quid gram, which is the amount that they buy. You can do a gram on your own in like an hour, no problem at all. And that is how bad addiction can get. If you're sat on your own doing a gram of coke on the way out to go and get some more and do partying, you are a bad addict. And this is what we try to tell children to avoid. But obviously, like I said before, they have no experience of it. They haven't seen it. It's exciting to explore what it might be. It might be good. They're getting told it's good. You know, their peer pressure, the celebrities and stuff are all doing it and getting away with it and being popularised for it. So children and teenagers look at that and they think, well, society's encouraging me to do it. And obviously, we have no traditional culture left in this country to say no. Used to be, we had Christian traditions, and the parents would say to you, no, 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 you can't defile the body that God gave you. You have to look after it, which means you don't do drugs. You can drink a little bit, you can smoke a little bit, you can do the occasional drug when you have to, like medicine or a party or whatever. You know, it's not like slavery where you're punished for not doing it. The only punishment you get for doing these things is you suffer for it yourself. So that's the reason why Christianity and God says, tell your kids not to do drugs. It's not because he's going to be angry if you do it. He doesn't care in that way. He cares because you're going to ruin your life. Slowly and surely, you're going to build up and you're going to turn the ship around, like I say, towards that lifestyle and those people. You're going to be stuck over there. And then you'll get to like my age, like 35, 40, and you'll think, well, I should have like 7 kids. I should be on my 3rd wife and have 7 kids by now. I should be swanning around on a yacht. But here I am making videos about the dangers of drugs because I have suffered through having done them. I've actually put that on myself, and my life is, I've suffered as a result. My life's got less in it than I should have because I spent so much time being a nihilistic, hedonistic asshole when I was young and doing tons of drugs. So please, that's why I'm making this video. If this relates to anyone you know, or a child, or a teenager, or someone like that who wants to be cool, get laid, and be, progressive in society and grow up and be a proper adult, show them this video. And if they still don't believe me, I will meet them and I will literally convince them, because it's so important for this generation that we nip this in the bud. Otherwise, we're going to have a huge Class A problem. Now, I'm not going to blame it on any particular sections of society or groups. We all know who is responsible for these things. But regardless, we are responsible for the people in our lives. So it's our responsibility to train them up and make sure this kind of thing is avoided. So now you know a little bit about the dangers and what can happen. We can talk about how to encourage the best out of people. How do you discourage someone from this and encourage them into better behaviour and a life? Well, for a start, remember this. Do as I do, not as I say, is what they're going to do. Do as I say, not what I do, is what you're going to expect of them. So you need to match your expectations of this person with how they're going to behave when you're not there. And that is another really important factor here, is when people are off doing drugs, they're in kind of secret land. They're in club land. It's the night time. They're in London. There's no one there they know. And, what happens in Spain stays in Spain kind of thing. So everyone does drugs and they talk about it in their little group, like their little socialist drug-taking group. And they generally don't share it outside of that. So how do you get them away from that? It's such a... there's a glamour to it. There's an exciting glamour to that situation, which even I, as a 42-year-old man, if I saw that and was invited into it, I would have to think twice about whether to say no or not, even though I'm going to end up saying no, because I'm an ex-addict. I don't want to be near that, because I'll probably end up going back to it. So yeah, I think the way to encourage people away from that is to give them a good moral example in your behaviour every single day. Consistently go out and live a life that proves out in physical actions and evidence, without having to speak any words, that not doing drugs is better than doing drugs. And not smoking is better than smoking, or not drinking a lot is better than drinking a lot. There's no other way to do it, because children are stubborn as fuck. Sorry to have to swear. This is an important video. I'm going to swear a few more times before the end. That's what you've got to realise, is these kids and these teenagers, when they're out, they're learning how to be independent adults, right? So they're actually genetically modelled to do what they're doing, to rebel against the parents, to rebel against the society. They're pushing out their boundaries so they can figure out, this is me, this is the boundary of me, this is what I do and this is what I look like. They're growing effectively, and that's another reason why it's so alluring and so cool and nice. You're out, you're a child having fun. Yeah, you're drinking and smoking before you're allowed to. It's a bit of fun, it's naughty, and you're learning how to be an adult, so you're getting a skill out of it. So when you come home, you wake up with your hangover. You don't think about the hangover. It didn't me anyway. I used to go out and do tons of pills and get really, really drunk, come back 3 days later, drop into bed and fall asleep. And I'd wake up with a huge banging hangover, and I used to not even realise. I used to tell people, I'm great, I don't have a hangover, I'll go to work and, go work on the tills at Tesco or whatever I was doing. And it was fine. But what I didn't realise is people see it. I was like, yeah, I don't have a come down. I feel fine. I'm in a great mood and I look fine. I've got my uniform on. Apart from I turn up to work and I stick out like a sore thumb because everyone else has turned up. Some of them have got hangovers, some not. But they don't look as terrible as I did after 3 days of Class A's and drinking. My whole face was white and spotty. I looked all drawn, like a bit tired like I do now, with funny bags under my eyes. I was dishevelled. I hadn't ironed my shirt. I wasn't my usual bubbly, enthusiastic self either. I was slightly narky, which is what happens. That's why they're called narcs, narcotics. Narky means you're like someone who's on narcotics, Class A drugs. Narky means you're a bit sketchy and a bit like anxious and panicky and zap, go away. You know, you're annoying. You'll piss off people that aren't on drugs, basically. So that's what you've got to do. Don't expect that you can tell someone drugs are bad, don't do them, and they'll just do it. There's virtually a 0% chance of you being able to negotiate with words that situation out of that person's life. You're going to have to do better. You're also going to have to expect and accept that they are going to do it. Occasionally, your rabid mental children are going to escape into the world, probably after you've had an argument with them and they've gone, "You're not my mum, I never want to fucking see you again," or some ridiculous thing that kids do. And then they go out on a resentment-fueled anger drive or revenge drive, and someone says, "Why don't you take these pills? Try this. It'll cheer you up. You'll have a great night." They try it, they go out, they have a great night, and the habit begins. So like I say, make sure you're always giving them that good moral example. I'm a failure of a moral example because I'm an ex-addict, and I have to admit that now. I'm a recovered addict. So I can't really be the person to go around telling kids not to do drugs because I'll be a hypocrite. But what I can say is, don't suffer the drawbacks that I suffered from having done drugs years ago. Like it's like taking a chunk out of my life that I can never get back or see because I did those drugs. So that's the thing to tell people. Give them a good example, and if they need more than that, say, this is the fact, son or daughter. Your life at the end, or not the end, when you get to like 20, 30, 40, every 10 years, you'll turn around, look back, and you consider your life, how it's going and everything else. And if you've spent 6 months or a year or longer, or possibly a lot longer than that, like I did, doing drugs, even after you've pushed it all away and got away from it, you've recovered, you're completely 100% not going to go back to drugs at all, the part of your life that got destroyed, you'll never get that back. You can put something else in its place, you can extend your life out and build it out in other ways, but the particular set of people who you were destined to meet, who didn't do drugs and smoke, who had different moral codes and different behavioural sets, coming from different backgrounds with different beliefs, those people now are your enemy, because you can't talk about your life with them. It's like when you're at school, you've got the preppies, you've got the trendies, and you've got the grebo, metla people, the alternative people. They don't speak to each other at all. They avoid each other. It's like gangs. So that's what you've got to think. When you're going out into this drug world, it's exciting and it's glamorous and it's fun, and you learn a lot, and you're an adult and it's edgy and all the rest of it. But you're literally hacking a piece of your life off with an axe, kicking it out the window. You never get that back. You might have the love of your life in that bit you just threw away. You might be saying no to meeting all the best people in your life just from doing drugs. You're replacing them with a bunch of drug users who you will not be friends with in the long term. Like, I tried really hard. I made some really great friendships during being an addict. We all do. It's a tough life being an addict. You're on the edge of death every single day, but you're in a rush to try and get more drugs. You've never got any money. Your health sucks. It's terrible. It is literally a disease that you're inflicted with, that you've inflicted on yourself. And no one has any sympathy for you because you just look pathetic. So try and avoid that as much as you can, because you don't want those people. You want the other people who are not smokers, who don't like doing drugs, who can openly say that and not be embarrassed about it. There's no peer pressure with those ones. So maybe they're not the trendies, maybe they're not the popular guys, maybe they're the alternative grebos, or maybe they're the losers or some other group. But the fact is, they're not the drug group, and that immediately puts them above for a long-term plan of your life then, because you will be friends with them in the long term. And like I say, the guys that you meet through doing drugs, unless you continue to do drugs, they will hate you in the end. I'm proof of that. I had like 20 really good friends, and as soon as they all found out that I'd quit, they all were waiting for me to jump back on it, and after a few years when I didn't, I stayed away from it, and my life started improving, got into Christianity, got this place. I'm ghosted. They don't want to know me. They don't want to know me because I activate resentment and jealousy within them. They know deep in here that they don't really like that life, all the drugs and everything else. It's only glamorous when you're a teenager. When you're doing it as an adult, it's pathetic, and you know it. You know it sucks. So it makes you resentful and jealous, and you don't want to see people who are not like that. So now I'm stuck between two worlds. The people I grew up with and knew and learned, the locals that I know, are all in that drug lifestyle, so I can't speak to any of them. And further to that, they don't actually like me anymore. They dislike me now, simply for the fact that I got away from it, and they can't, and they're jealous of it. So yeah, that's the end of this segment. It's getting a bit long now. So we've gone through smoking, we've gone through beer, we've gone through cannabis, we've gone through Class A's, pills, speed, everything. Oh yeah, the last thing before we go is the psychedelics, things that make you hallucinate. Now these are generally not as classed as hard drugs, but these are, in my view, the ones you've got to be particularly careful with, because some people's mind is strong as granite. They can see all kinds of crazy things. They could see a big face come out of the wall and swallow them, and they think they're in space being swallowed by an alien, then they wake up and they can just carry on with their life. It doesn't freak them out. But some people, especially I think autistic people or people on the spectrum who've got some kind of higher function that we don't understand, that higher function is going to be completely screwed when they do the psychedelics. Well, it might be. It's just such a huge risk. It's not worth taking. So they might have some magical hallucination that just opens new doors in their mind and makes them understand the world in a different way. But then they can't come back to reality and they go schizophrenic. In fact, there's more people around here that are drug-induced schizos than there are regular, normal, poor unfortunate schizos. So yeah, be careful of that. And that's the end of this video. Remember what I say, it's so important. I know they're going to say, oh, shut up, you're old and boring, you're not cool, and we're going to go and do this. But it's like, no, revise this video. Don't care how long and boring you thought it was. If you care enough about these people in your life, you want to put them away from drugs and smoking, which you should, and encourage them onto something else, rather than filling the gaps in their life with little drug highs and smoking and, random shags and all that sort of stuff, which is cool when you're 15, 16, no doubt about it. But it's a phase. If you keep doing that into adulthood, you're doing it wrong. You're embarrassing yourself. So yeah, it's hot now, I don't even need that anymore. So that's the end of this video. I hope you learned something. I've inspired you to go out and smash the drug operations that are affecting your family members, and to convince you and everyone else who saw this video, drugs are bad, okay? So I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Well, I'm pleased with that. That was pretty fucking badass. Not bad for me.